Hi, and welcome to the January 2020 licensed staff meeting. Very excited to get this new year off and running. So again, just as a reminder, this is, if you are attending this session, this is one of 4 Healthcare Academy sessions you can attend this year. The other 8 sessions that are required are to be in person. So again, just to reiterate, the reason for that is because we want to make sure that everyone is getting the information that we need to get out to the to you guys as nurses to be able to perform and to be able to stay on top of current trends or standards that are changing, and along with policies and procedures. So again, thank you for attending, and we'll go ahead and get started. We have a lot of information to cover today, so I need you to really give your full attention to this presentation. We have a lot of survey prep going on. We know that they're due here at Valley Senior Living on Columbia at any moment. So please try to minimize the distractions while completing this PowerPoint, and we will continue to plug along and discuss new topics. As always, if you do have any questions after reviewing this PowerPoint, please make sure to let me know, or Kate or Leah, or really any other member of the nursing leadership team if you do have questions. So getting started, we're going to talk about real-time med. So real-time med is a PREVALON boots. We've had this come up quite a bit lately, and PREVALON boots are a single-use boot, which means that they do not, they're not reused. You don't reuse them for another resident. You can reuse them for the same resident, but we don't reuse them for another. So if you are in need of PREVALON boots, you need to go to the back and get a bag of PREVALON boots. We're working on a replacement schedule and guidelines for those. We do replace our stockings every 6 months, so that's what we're looking at doing. But again, when somebody has PREVALON boots ordered, it's your responsibility to make sure that we document if they're in place or anytime a resident chooses not to wear them. And the reason being is because we've put them in place because we feel that they are at risk for a pressure injury or could be at risk for some skin breakdown. So we want to make sure that we visualize that. The CNAs are trained to tell us if there's an issue with any sort of, any skin or things, redness, irritation, but they're not trained to tell us that they think this person has a pressure injury. That's our responsibility. So we do need to make sure that we are looking at those areas and not just documenting that the boots are in place. Really, every resident upon move-in should have their heels checked because that is one of the most places we've seen for skin breakdown. Renita has created templates for the replacement time frame, so those will just be generated onto the TAR. Declinations and diets. So what we've done recently is kind of gone back through some adverse events that we've had, and we've come across a couple of things that we still aren't quite 100% sure what the process is or what we want to do. So when it comes to declinations and diets, so if somebody is thoroughly refusing their diet, and say they're on a blended diet or a pureed, obviously we want to make sure that we keep them safe, but also that they are identified, that the risks are identified for them and that they understand those risks and that they could lead to death. We know that if a resident wants to change their diet, oftentimes we wish, or we would hope that you could wait until the provider or until the dietitians are here and they can have that conversation. But again, if you're questioning if somebody wants to change their diet after hours or on the weekends, just notify the kitchen supervisor. What they can do is then get in touch with the dietitian and they can make a decision on that. Sometimes we'll be able to hopefully kind of buffer it and make it, let them understand why we want them to wait until Monday or why we want them to wait until a dietitian is here tomorrow, because it is a pretty big risk factor. If you are to do ever a declination, though, in regards to diet, you have to make sure to have 2 members of the IDT team sign that with you or be present with that. So that can be 2 nurses, or that can be, anyone, any other part of the dietary team or the IDT team. So again, the dietitians would request that you would try to encourage them to wait until somebody is there to visit with them, but we also know that sometimes that's not always possible. So again, if you are going to change diet, have 2 people, be very descriptive that, the risk of choking could lead to death, and then notify the kitchen. Also leave a message for the dietitian and the care coordinator. Bed alarms. So when checking function for bed alarms, you actually have to test it to see if it works. So we've kind of been going back and forth on this because we realized as of the other week that we have like 5 think we've required you guys to check the bed alarm function like 5 different times a day, and that really isn't realistic. We shouldn't expect you guys to do that. So one thing that we want to see happen is, maybe going back to like 1 time per day, and instead of you guys as licensed nurses checking the actual function, maybe just having a question that states, did the bed alarm function today, or something, or did the CNA check bed alarm function? We don't have it hammered out yet, but something along those lines. So, but what we did find, though, when doing some research on these bed alarms, is that we will have people checking that the bed alarm functioned and went off, but yet there's no coinciding light that's gone with that. Like the bed alarm hadn't gone off the whole entire shift. So then we have to question if it's actually being checked. But then as we looked and broke it down further, that's when we came upon the thought of, are we requiring you guys to do this way too frequent that we're kind of getting like checkbox fatigue, I think is how it's been relayed. So, so some interventions, and the other thing too, is if an alarm does not work, what do you need to do? And obviously we need to replace it. And if the new one that you grab doesn't work, then make sure to contact maintenance or on call if after hours. You should have bed alarm kits in all of your clean utility rooms. If you do not, there are some in the back. And if you don't find any in the back, or when you check another neighborhood, please leave Sue a message so that she can restock those kits. Blood sugars. So this is actually pretty interesting. One of the things that we found recently during, I think it was through an adverse event, was that when we go through and we look at medication or insulin changes, we don't really ever ask for the providers for parameters for when do you want to review the blood sugars? Should we increase the frequency of the blood sugars? Is everything good? Kind of whatnot. So we had gone through and thought, well, maybe we could add some changes to our standing orders that would kind of just give us a guideline for when we should have blood sugars implemented or not, and changed and reviewed. And so we had come up with these 3 things that are on this slide. And this is really just more of a guide or an educational tool. So don't put this stuff into place, but we had thought about putting this specifically into a standing order, but then realized how hard that is when people are very individualized when it comes to their insulin and their dosing and their blood sugar checks, and especially the parameters when there is a blood sugar check. So this is really just a guide, but what I do ask for you guys to do is to, when you guys are receiving insulin order changes from any provider, or regardless of the long-acting, short-acting, whichever, make sure to get a parameter. So do you want us to call when does the provider want to follow up? Are the blood sugars that are currently ordered frequent enough or good enough for this order? And I've also emailed the providers to ask them to go ahead and start trying to remember that as they're doing the orders as well, is to start writing some of those. So it's going to be a team approach for all of us to make sure that this gets done the way that we intend for it to get done. So hopefully we can just have a little bit better process when it comes to monitoring resident blood sugars. Insulin orders, I did do an audit. Just as a reminder, though, all fast-acting insulin must give after meals unless the provider has ordered otherwise. Make sure that if you do have it ordered otherwise, as far as not administering after meals, that we have the documentation to support it. Otherwise, just again, a reminder that when you guys are giving insulin, that you give it after meals. Leg rests and foot pedals. So foot pedals are the standard. I just wanted to bring this back up, and they must be used anytime you're assisting a resident in their wheelchair. This gets tricky, but you know what? We do have to be monitoring and mindful of this as we're going around. So leg rests are, the ones with the calf pads, and those are for residents who need to have their legs elevated or who need to, have a hip fracture or things like that. So just make sure that you guys are monitoring and you're correcting if you do see people who are not pushing residents with leg rests or even foot pedals for that fact. The other thing with this too is that the care plan is very specific to this. So in order to eliminate any confusion or potential for error, I have asked the care coordinators to make sure that it either says foot pedals or leg rest. So just so you know, that's kind of where we're at with that right now. So resident outings and LOAs, we've had a couple of situations recently where we've had residents go out and they've come back and either had an injury or, we've had it to the extreme of a fracture or, medications weren't received. So couple of the things that we have been talking about is what do we do to ensure that we are, equipping residents with and families with the information they need to be able to safely care for that resident. So what I'm doing with this topic specifically is asking for your guys' help. And when we think about this, we kind of just assume that residents and families are good. They know what to do. It's not a big deal. But we can't always be so certain. So is it a standardized form that we fill in, how they transfer, how they take their pills, how they eat, just to give them so they have a kind of a tool to go, or do we, look at, I don't even really know at this point, but I guess I just wanted to kind of get your wheels turning a little bit to start thinking about how do we provide families with that information that they need to make sure that the resident is safe. Obviously, we don't send gait belts with. Should we be sending a gait belt with the family? Should we be doing kind of a med administration training before we send them out with that little envelope of meds? It's a lot of different things, but if you have any ideas or information, either email me or let me know, and we will go ahead and we can try and get that stuff kind of squared away. I would love feedback from you guys, as you guys are the ones that always have to pretty much do this when you do send people out in the community or they go out for lunch or supper or whichever. So yeah, I would appreciate any of the feedback you guys have in order to make this process safer for our residents. Hospital returns, just as a reminder, we do have 24 hours from when a resident is ready, if they are at bed hold, to come back to the facility. So if you're questioning whether or not they should come back, make sure that you reach out to the on-call provider and have them review, where we're at, and if we think that if we're questioning whether or not they should come back, then you guys can let them make the decision versus you guys making that decision. So it'll just give you leverage if we feel like the resident is not appropriate to return at that point. Usually probably 8 to 9 times out of 10 the resident will return. So when they do, we just need to make sure that we have all the paperwork that we need and that we treat it just like anybody else who's returning, especially on a weekend. If you don't get the information that you need, or you don't get the paperwork that you need, make sure you call the floor that the resident was on and request that information be sent, or else have somebody go and pick it up. Skin and wound dashboard. So wounds need to be resolved. So this came up. So once a wound is resolved, so let's say a pressure ulcer has healed, you'll need to take a picture of that, but then you need to chart for the 4 weeks that it's resolved. So this doesn't mean that you have to take a picture every week for 4 weeks, but do the one picture to resolve it, and then you can do, 4 weeks of pictures, not pictures. The 1 week to resolve it, and then do 4 weeks of chart notes is sufficient to cover those. But I've found that we do oftentimes keep wounds on the skin and wound dashboard that are resolved, so we can just get those resolved and out of there. The other thing too is just making sure that you're taking pictures and they're matching with the right area. I've found a couple that have been said sacrum, but it's a heel, or vice versa. Huddles, just as a reminder, these aren't optional. We have to keep doing these because it's a great way for everyone to kind of regroup, learn any important info that's happening, provide support to anyone who, you might have some newer CNAs on your neighborhood or even newer nurses that are really struggling, and we can actually use that time to kind of lift them up, and we can be supportive and work towards just figuring out how we can encourage them. The other thing you can do with huddles is, focus on somebody who's doing a great job. So for instance, hey, Jess, you got all of your residents up this morning before breakfast. Your rooms look great. Have a great break. So really just kind of showing people that we see other things too. It isn't just the other stuff or the things that are not going well. So again, just continue to use those huddles as a great way to support your team and also praise and identify areas that we can improve on as well. Antibiotic care plans. So just as a reminder, if any nurse can implement a antibiotic care plan. So I think what gets people tripped up here is for LPNs, you cannot initiate the initial care plan. So that is the one when the resident moves in, like the very first thing. That has to be an RN, which is why the care coordinator does it. But when it comes to implementing an antibiotic care plan, you guys are able to do that. It does not need to be a message left for the care coordinator. So make sure that you guys are going ahead and implementing those right away when the order gets received, because it can actually, if it goes for days and days without having a care plan in, we can be looked at as out of compliance because we don't have a plan of care for that resident. Kayla always goes through and always closes out those care plans or resolves them, so that's not the issue, but just make sure if it's a Saturday and you guys are implementing an antibiotic order that you go ahead and you put that care plan in. If you do not know how to put a care plan in, or you're feeling just not really comfortable with it, please reach out to Sarah Dockendorf in staff development. She is very much willing to help you learn how to do that, and we'll come out when you're working and just show you how. So again, just let us know if you need some help with that. Outside equipment, so be just very cautious when residents are wanting to bring in furniture. We had a situation over at our other campus where, or community, where a family member had brought in a bed and an air mattress. And, you know, the thing we have to think about is we've kind of gone to standardized equipment around here because we don't want to have to train on every single piece of equipment or item that comes through the door. So when we have residents who bring in equipment, and I'm not talking specifically just recliners or anything like that, like if somebody wants to request to bring in their own bed, we have to remember that we can't really provide maintenance on that. We don't know how old it is. We don't know where it's from. We don't know if it's been in, is there bed bugs on it? I know that sounds awful, but there could be. So we do have to look at all of that information, and I think it's best if we need to stick to our equipment. So just if you're questioning it, just make sure to leave a message for the care coordinator and take it out of service, because sometimes we have families who just bring stuff in and we don't get the opportunity to discuss it with them. But if there are items that are brought in, make sure that we are taking those out of service until somebody can assist with that. Psychotropic med follow-up, we are beginning a process where we are going to be charting on the status of residents who are receiving psychotropic medications. So there is going to be a progress note template in point-click care that will prompt you on what to document on, and also kind of what signs and symptoms to look for potential adverse or outside concerns. So going forward, you will see the note templates. So when you do get somebody who's been ordered So there will be a progress note template in point-click care that will prompt you on what to document. So again, when somebody does get a psychotropic medication ordered, we need to have this process implemented along with people who are currently receiving a psychotropic med and has had a dose change or anything of the above. So total lifts, you guys have probably seen that we've got some total lifts in the building that have this yellow tape on them, and what that is an identifier for lifts that can support up to 700 pounds. So we are moving to all 700-pound capacity lifts. The reason for that is we did have a situation where a resident who was transferred with assistive 2 in a lift that holds up to 450 pounds ended up tipping the lift with the 2 staff members present. Thankfully, in this situation, the resident did not get hurt. That could have been a way worse situation. But the situation prompted us to look at the width of the legs of the lift. So when you look at a 450-pound lift versus a 700-pound lift, there's about 6 inches of width on that expanse with the legs, which provides more of a stability and support. So rather than trying to determine, okay, this resident is this weight and so we're going to use this lift, I've decided to purchase all 700-pound lifts. So every neighborhood currently has 2, with the exception of Almont. They have 3, and then we do have more coming that will give every neighborhood 3. So all residents will need to use, or all total lifts will have that 700-pound capacity, so we won't have to worry about the potential for using the wrong lift. So one thing that I've implemented since this has happened is that all residents who weigh 30 or 250 pounds or greater will need to have assistive 3. So once all of our 700-pound lifts are here, I will update everybody and we'll go back to 2 people per lift. But until that's done, we can't risk somebody using a 450-pound lift. And again, this is only for residents who are 250 pounds or greater and use a total lift. We do have residents who are greater than 250 pounds, but they either use a sit to stand or they can transfer on their own. So just keep that in mind. I will update when all the lifts are here. They should be here probably next week is what I'm hoping. Quality of care, quality of life, party planning. Just as a reminder, you do need to attend your quality of care and quality of life meetings. You have to do 8 per year. And then try, if you can, to attend the party planning meeting. This meeting is a super fun way to engage everybody into doing some fun things on the neighborhoods. There's plenty of neighborhood funds for people to do things. I think of like Valentine's Day. What are people coming up with to do for that holiday that'll be here before we know it, and how are we making this a fun environment for our residents. Your input though for these meetings, especially the quality of care and the quality of life, are vital. We need you guys. You guys are the ones that are doing all of this hard work every single day. You're getting to know residents every time you're here. You're getting to understand the processes and what they want and what they'd like to see, and so we need that input. So again, please come to those meetings, participate, engage, show us what it is that you know about these residents and how we can implement that going forward. Vitals. Watch for abnormal vital signs. I did talk about this last month, but make sure that if you're seeing abnormal vital signs that you're putting them in or that you're redoing them. I just came across a 282 pulse and then a temperature of 982. Well, those obviously are not accurate. So make sure that when you guys are putting your vitals in that you just slow down a bit, make sure it's correct and it's accurate, and just help us with keeping everything, correct for that resident. I would hate for someone to, and obviously these are a little excessive, but I would hate for someone to have thinking that they had a fever and whatnot, and they didn't, and then we put them on antibiotics for a reason that was not necessary, or respiratory issues, things like that. So again, just keep that in mind when you guys are looking at your dashboards. We do notice those, and we do strike out quite a few that are really abnormal, but just if you want to help us out with that and making sure we can keep accurate records for our residents. We are in the process of getting a new scheduling system. Yay! Right? This is super exciting. This system, we're going to go to AOD, which is our current, obviously, payroll system that we use. But we will be getting rid of Orbital Shift. This system will actually have an app that we will all need you to download. You can get that in the Google Play Store or the App Store for iPhones. But you can utilize this app for picking up shifts and putting shifts up for cover. This is going to make life so much easier and so much more efficient. I actually made the comment in the last meeting that we are going from basically a Pinto car to a Cadillac. That's how much of a difference this should make. So you'll see that you're going to be assigned a Healthcare Academy video within the next probably 2 weeks, and you'll have 30 days to complete it. But it's a video that shows you how to use the app. So the whole entire nursing department will be assigned this, so everyone needs to make sure to do it. And I think you guys will really, really enjoy the simplicity of it, the efficiency, the ability to pick up shifts, to give up shifts, to have an answer right away versus waiting for someone to approve your shift. It'll all get done very, very quickly. So, but make sure to keep us posted if you guys are having any issues with it, or any, you see things that are super exciting, or things that maybe the system isn't able to do that we can see if they can build in for us. But this system will track all vacations, all that stuff. It will also print out our daily report sheets. It will do our daily schedules. It's going to do so much for us that will make life so much easier for everyone. Gait belts, as a reminder, gait belts are not an option. We do need to make sure that everyone has gait belts and that they're using them. So again, we set the example as leadership and nurses, so I need to make sure that we're showing the CNAs that we follow that same expectation we set for them. ADONs would like me to report a few different things. A couple of things is that as of the end of these meetings, we're not going to be offering incentive to flex staff. we are not in a financial position to just be offering double time, flex time incentive, things like that. So we are going to scale back on that because we do really need to utilize the staff that we have on shift and be more efficient with those care partners. So please, also, they would like you to continue to make sure the report sheets are filled out daily for each shift. CNAs need to do the CNA to CNA report, so make sure that they are doing that. And then the yellow CNA evals, you've probably seen a rash of these come through. And the reason is because these are actually a regulatory requirement that surveyors are looking at right now. They aren't asking for nursing ones. They're asking strictly for CNAs to show that they have had an annual performance appraisal. So again, these are really, really important for your CNAs or for you to complete with your CNAs. One thing that I suggest too, and that the ADONs would like you guys to do, is to do a CNA or to work with them and develop goals for the upcoming year. Also, as a reminder, you need to fill it out, send it to the ADON. They will review it and send it back to you, and then you can review it with the CNA. The reason that we do that is because they might have other input for you that will allow you to have a fair eval. One other area that I think we can improve on and that I think we all could do better with is sitting down with the CNA and doing the eval even together. Kind of seeing where they range themselves or rate themselves and where you do, and then coming up with goals together would really be a good way to establish relationships and also to show them that you support them. Let's see, new name tags. You guys, those are all here. Please check your mailbox on the neighborhood. Kate has all the flex staff, so if you do need them or need it, please go and ask Kate for hers or for yours if you're flex. And then also too, Shelly has noticed an increase of staff eating food on the neighborhoods. So we do have the back food cupboard. So just as a reminder, we're always looking for donations for that, but that is always available, and there usually is some food in there. So we realized a couple of years, well, it'll be 2 years in June, that not everybody has the funds or the means to provide themselves lunch every day and get kind of sick of toast and just, I realized that. We realized that. So we went ahead and developed this food pantry in the back. So if you guys would like to donate, yay. If you want to eat out of it, be my guest. That's exactly what it's there for. But again, make sure that we're not taking a bunch of food out of the neighborhoods, because that is what the residents do eat. Specimen cups. So we have a new specimen cup that we have used for clean catches, which come with a wipe, but the current ones that we have do not. So Kayla did get wipes ordered that we can use up for the previous containers with for the clean catch specimens. So once they're gone, they'll solely have the specimen kits with the wipes inside for each. And then making sure that we only use clean catch specimens for somebody who can actually follow a command. You have to clean the area around the urinary opening, start to void, collect midstream to be accurate. We have the new kits that are here, like I said, that are going to be having the cleansing wipes in them, but now you'll use the ones that Kayla has bought. If you can't get a clean, good specimen, make sure to do an in and out catheter. So it's a one-time order to cath them for that sample. And then hats, they're dirty, not appropriate for urine collection, and they're meant for measuring output, not for obtaining a sample. And then just so you know, the policy and the skills validations have been updated to reflect these specimen cups. Shameless plug here for you guys to all do your Healthcare Academy. If you have not, there is a Plerex drain module on there right now. Please to make sure to double check your Healthcare Academy every so often. I do see us utilizing this a lot more in the future for specific educational opportunities and competencies. Lab tests, write in if you can't find what you need on a referral or if you're unsure what to mark. So if you have somebody who's ordering a UA or UAUC with reflex to culture, you're not going to find that on the lab sheets. So what the lab has requested is that you just write it in. You will see UAUC with reflex to micro, but that's not the same thing. So I know sometimes people are checking that, but really we were wanting it for culture. So just make sure if you are getting a UAUC with reflex to culture, that you are putting that in the write-in portion rather than trying to check the box. Spill kits. There are spill kits available on every neighborhood. We did have a infection control concern that happened recently, and I know Kayla will be sending out some information on that just to kind of discuss the process when somebody does have bodily fluids that may or may not, or that do go maybe get on the carpet or whatnot. So we will this is just kind of a FYI, but and also look ahead or be on the lookout for Kayla to send out maybe a little bit of a summary on this situation that occurred and how we go ahead and we clean these issues up in a way that meets infection prevention standards. Emailing about so this email that I got. And then this is a pretty exciting time, but our secure conversations are now going to generate a progress note. So you can click on there's a little upside down triangle when you do send, have your secure conversations. So if you're doing it from the little chat box, if you are doing it from the actual residence chart, that's a piece of paper on the left side. If you click on that, it'll say create a progress note. So then you don't have to you don't have to type it into secure conversations and then type a progress note and then do all this stuff. All of this will actually generate, and I've put an example. It's kind of hard to read, but I did put an example on here. And the thing I want you guys to be the most careful with or the most cognizant about is that this is now going to be a part of the medical record. Before, the secure conversations were not a part of the medical records. Or the medical record, but now they will be. So you've really got to make sure, we all have to make sure that we're professional and that we're not saying LOL and sorry, I'm going to bug you today, or I'm totally bugging you all weekend. You know, that's our job, is to be on the lookout for our residents and to be providing the care that they need. But it's also really exciting to know that this is going to cut down on a lot of that double charting. So again, keep it professional, keep it as if you were going to be able, you would eventually need to defend yourself in a court of law, which I hate using that example, but unfortunately we're in an age of society where that is true. So again, just making sure that we're keeping it very basic. This note is actually really great. So I can read it. It just quickly, it says, Katie Olson sent a message to Dr. Henderson, and it was passed on that you ordered a BMP today. Somehow only potassium was drawn. Amaka did order a BMP for next week. Just wanted to verify that that we did not need to redraw the BMP for today. Her potassium was 3.9 today. Chris Henderson sent back, BMP next week is fine. This is perfect. This is exactly what we want. It's got what happened, how, why, who he notified, what the potassium level was, and then what does he want us to do, just for clarification. So secure conversations is going to be a game changer, I think, for us. But again, we do have to remember that it is a part of the medical record, and it does have to maintain the professionalism. And, I would refrain from emojis and from abbreviations that are not approved. And so just thinking about that. All in all, though, I'm looking forward. We do have surveys showing soon, anytime, so keep up the great work. I know it's going to be another fantastic survey. You guys work so hard every single day, and you guys are just the backbone of this community, and so we couldn't do it without you. So if you have questions, insights, ideas, concerns, whichever, again, my door is always open. Come and visit with me. But again, I'm looking forward to this survey. I think you guys are going to kick butt and just do awesome. So have a great rest of your January.